Beautiful, beautiful. Something close to genius. He's turned the tie around all by him.
On July 13, José Mourinho walked back through the doors of the Santiago Bernabéu. 13 years later, he's back, and waiting for him is a squad that at first glance looks exactly like the Galácticos. Mbappé, Bellingham, Vinícius. It looks like the return of football's most iconic project, but it isn't, because by the end of this video, I want to convince you of one thing: the Galácticos aren't coming back. Not because Real Madrid stopped wanting them, because modern football made them impossible, and the biggest club in the world is about to prove it. To understand why they are gone, we have to go back where it all began. The year is 2000. Florentino Perez becomes Real Madrid president with one promise: every summer he'll sign the best player in the world, no matter the costs. First came Luis Figo, stolen directly from Barcelona in one of the most explosive transfers football has ever seen. Then came Zinedine Zidane, the most expensive player in football history. After that, Ronaldo Nazario, fresh off winning the World Cup, still the most fierce striker on the planet. And then David Beckham, a football superstar but also a global celebrity. It wasn't just a transfer strategy, it was a business model. Real Madrid weren't simply building a football team, they were building the most famous sports brands on earth. And behind those stars, the less known players quietly held everything together. Iker Casillas, Fernando Hierro, Raul, players who defended, sacrificed and carried the dressing room while the superstars grabbed the headlines. It was reckless and chaotic. 4 Ballon d'Or winners passed through that dressing room in just a few years. And for a while, it actually worked, because football in 2000s was played by a completely different set of rules. But here's a part almost nobody remembers. The Galácticos didn't collapse because they stopped signing stars. They collapsed because they forgot what made stars possible in the first place. Claude Makélélé was a player who quietly made everyone else look better. But when Real Madrid sold him to Chelsea, they believed replacing a defensive midfielder would be easy. After all, why pay superstar wages to someone whose job was simply winning the ball back? It turned out to be one of the biggest mistakes in the club's modern history. Almost overnight, the balance disappeared. The midfield became exposed and the defense started falling apart. Years later, Zidane himself admitted losing Makélélé hurt the team more than almost any superstar they signed afterwards. That's the uncomfortable truth about the Galácticos. They weren't winning because they had the most stars. They were surviving because a handful of players were quietly covering for everyone else. And once those players disappeared, the illusion disappeared too. Which raises the real question: if the Galácticos worked once, why can't Real Madrid simply do it again? The answer has almost nothing to do with Real Madrid. There wasn't one reason, there were four. 4 changes that quietly reshaped football forever. And once you understand these 4 changes, you will realize something surprising. This Real Madrid squad was never built like the Galácticos. It only looks that way, and that's exactly where the story begins. Before we break down these 4 reasons, if you are new here, this is exactly what this channel is all about. Not just telling you what happened in football, but explaining why it happened. So if that's your kind of content, hit like and subscribe. Now, let's answer the question that killed the Galácticos. The first thing football changed was time. Back in the early 2000s, Real Madrid played around 50 competitive matches in the entire season. Today, the biggest clubs can easily play more than 65. The Champions League got bigger, the Club World Cup expanded, international football became more demanding, and suddenly one season became a marathon. That changed everything. Back then, you could build a squad around 5 superstars and fill the rest with role players. Today, that team wouldn't survive until March. Modern football doesn't reward the best starting 11, it rewards the deepest squad. 11 elite players is not enough anymore. You need 20 players capable of stepping in the Champions League knockout game without the entire system collapsing around them. Depth isn't a luxury anymore, it's survival, and that alone makes the original Galácticos model almost impossible. But even if Real Madrid somehow managed to build that squad, they'd run into an even bigger problem. For years, Florentino Perez could simply outspend almost everyone. If the world's best player became available, Real Madrid signed him. That football doesn't exist anymore. Today, every euro is scrutinized. La Liga introduced spending controls, and UEFA added its own financial regulations on top. Even the richest clubs have limits. Real Madrid can't wake up tomorrow and buy every superstar on the market. Not because they don't want to, because they are no longer allowed. And once money stopped solving every problem, clubs had to become smarter. Recruitment became less about the headlines and more about building a team, which leads to the biggest shift of all. 20 years ago, individual brilliance could win you almost anything. Today, structure beats talent. Watch the best teams in modern football. Every player presses and tracks back. They understand exactly where they are supposed to be. Managers don't just coach talent anymore, they coach space. One player refusing to defend can destroy an entire pressing system. One superstar who doesn't track his runner can lose you a Champions League tie. Football became obsessed with organization, data, patterns. The pressing triggers and positional discipline. The modern game punishes imbalance faster than ever before. That's a complete opposite of what made the Galácticos famous. Their philosophy was simple: collect the best players, figure everything else out later. Modern football doesn't let you do that anymore. And then, the final piece disappeared. The original Galácticos only worked because everyone agreed on one thing: who the best player in the world was. Every summer, there was one obvious target, one player every club dreamed of. And then, for more than a decade, football belonged to two men, Messi and Ronaldo, every Ballon d'Or and Champions League campaign. But that era is over. Today, who is the best player in the world? Mbappé, Haaland, Lamine Yamal, Bellingham, Vinícius. Ask 10 people and you'll get 10 different answers. The spotlight is shared, and if there isn't one player everyone agrees is the best, then the entire Galactico strategy loses its foundation. But his next team tried to copy the Galactico strategy, and it failed miserably. If you think this is all just a theory, you have already seen what happens when a club tries to recreate the Galácticos. Paris Saint-Germain. In 2021, they assembled what looks like a dream team. Messi, Neymar, Mbappé, three of the greatest attacking players of their generation. On paper, it looked unstoppable, but in reality, it exposed everything that had changed about modern football. There was no balance, no clear defensive identity, no system that could get the best out of three players who all wanted the ball in the same spaces. And every year, the same story repeated. Brilliant in moments, disconnected as a team. The Champions League slipped away again. Talent alone wasn't enough, so they tore the project down. Less star power, more structure. And almost immediately, they looked like a better football team. That's modern football. And that's exactly why Jose Mourinho's return is so fascinating. Because despite everything that changed, his greatest strength has never been tactics. It's leadership. When the dressing room loses direction, Mourinho gives it one. Fast. He did it at Chelsea and Inter. Even did it at Roma, dragging an underperforming squad to consecutive European finals. That's why this appointment makes sense. Real Madrid didn't need another revolutionary coach. They need stability, authority, someone capable of walking into a chaotic dressing room and immediately demanding standards. Few managers in the football history have been better than that. If the goal is fixing the culture, Mourinho might be the perfect choice. But culture isn't the only thing that wins football matches. Because Mourinho has always believed in one thing above everything else: control, compact defending and discipline. His teams don't chase chaos, they control it. And that's where the questions began. Because look at the players he'll be coaching. These aren't players built around restraints, they are built around freedom, improvisation, risk. Those ideas don't always live comfortable together. We have seen this story before. Even in smaller ways through Mourinho's career, eventually creative players begin to feel restricted. Maybe Mourinho has evolved, maybe this dressing room responds differently, and history doesn't repeat itself. But if it does, don't expect the first signs to appear on the pitch. Watch the interviews, the substitutions, the body language. That's usually where Mourinho's biggest battles begin, not with opponents, but with his own stars. So here's the question: can Mourinho unlock one of the most talented dressing rooms in the world, or is the Galácticos gone forever? Over the next few months, we're about to find out. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Follow for more.